She lies. She always lies. My sister said it into a microphone, in front of our relatives, in front of my mother, in front of the mediator, and I almost believed her until the recording started playing. Before we begin, if you've ever had someone rewrite the truth so confidently that you questioned your own memory, you'll understand this story. If it resonates, consider liking or subscribing, and tell me where you're watching from. I read more than you think. The meeting was supposed to be private, just family, just clarity, just working things out. That's what my sister, Alina, had said when she insisted we sit down with a neutral mediator about our grandmother's estate. I'm 32, she's 35. She's always been louder, more certain, more persuasive in rooms full of people. I'm the one who gathers facts quietly. The estate itself wasn't massive. A house, some savings, a small investment account. But it wasn't about money. It was about what happened the week before our grandmother passed. Alina had been staying with her, handling logistics, doctor visits, bills, care coordination. I visited every other day after work. I brought groceries, sat by the bed, read aloud when Grandma was too tired to hold a book herself. The day before she died, Grandma asked me something very specific. "Make sure the account stays separate," she whispered. I remember it clearly. Her voice was fragile but steady. "What account?" I asked. "The savings. I told Alina it wasn't to be touched." I squeezed her hand and told her I'd make sure. I didn't know then what she meant. I found out a week later, after the funeral, when paperwork surfaced. The savings account had been transferred, not closed, transferred, into a joint account with Alina's name on it. The transfer date? 3 days before Grandma passed. When I confronted her privately, she didn't deny it. "She wanted me to manage it," Alina said. "She told me it wasn't to be touched." "You misunderstood." I didn't argue then. I requested bank records instead. That's when things escalated, because requesting documentation apparently meant I didn't trust her, which at that point was accurate. So she organized the meeting. Family present, mediator seated at the head of the table. And that's when she said it. She lies. She always lies. Confident, measured, practiced. She claimed I had misheard Grandma, that I was exaggerating, that I had a history of misinterpreting things. That phrase stung, because it wasn't new. Growing up, Alina had a way of narrating events before I could. If we fought, she explained it first. If something broke, she told the story before I opened my mouth. And she was good at it. Clear, assertive, convincing. I was quieter, which meant doubt often landed on me. So when she looked at our relatives and said, "She lies," I felt 12 years old again. Small, uncertain. But here's what she didn't know. The week before Grandma passed, when she'd been drifting in and out of clarity, I started recording voice notes on my phone. Not secretly. Grandma knew. I told her I was recording stories so I wouldn't forget them. Memories about her childhood, about my grandfather, about recipes, and one afternoon, about the account. "Make sure Alina doesn't move it. It's for both of you, equal." Her words weren't confused. They weren't fragmented. They were direct. I hadn't planned to use the recording. I had saved it because I loved her voice. But when my sister called me a liar publicly, something inside me shifted. Not rage, resolve. The mediator asked gently, "Do you have evidence to support your claim?" Alina smiled slightly. "She doesn't," she said. And that's when I reached into my bag. I didn't rush, didn't dramatize. I unlocked my phone, found the file, and placed it on the table. I recorded Grandma's stories during her last week, including the conversation about the account. I said calmly. The room went quiet. Alina's smile faltered. "You recorded her?" she asked sharply. "Yes. That's manipulative. It's documentation." I pressed play. Grandma's voice filled the room. Soft, thin, but unmistakable. "Make sure Alina doesn't move it. It's for both of you. Equal." Silence swallowed the air. My sister's face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. The certainty drained first, then the composure. The mediator leaned forward slightly. "Do you have anything to respond?" he asked Alina. She opened her mouth, closed it, and for the first time in my life, she didn't have a faster version of the story. She had nothing. The recording ended with the soft rustle of sheets and my grandmother asking for water. No dramatic closing statement, no cinematic emphasis, just her voice. Clear, intentional, equal. The silence afterward felt heavier than the sound itself. No one rushed to speak. Not my mother, not the mediator, not even Alina. She was staring at the table like it had betrayed her. "This doesn't prove anything," she finally said, but the confidence was gone. Grandma was confused. The mediator tilted his head slightly. "Her statement sounds coherent." "She was on medication," Alina pressed. "So were you," I said quietly. "We all were. Stress does that." She shot me a look. Sharp, but unfocused. For the first time, she didn't look certain. She looked cornered. "I moved the money because the account needed better management," she said. "It was sitting there doing nothing. It wasn't yours to manage alone. She trusted me. She trusted both of us." That word again. Both. It's amazing how threatening fairness can feel to someone who prefers control. The mediator asked for bank statements. Alina hesitated before handing over printed copies. The transfer had been executed online. No joint authorization, no documentation of consent, just her login credentials and a digital move. 3 days before Grandma passed. "Why didn't you tell your sister immediately?" the mediator asked gently. "I was going to." "When?" Silence. It was the same pattern I'd seen my whole life. Move first, explain later. But now there was audio, time-stamped truth, and truth doesn't need charisma. After the meeting ended, most of the family left quietly. No confrontations, no raised voices, just that uncomfortable shuffle people do when something private becomes undeniable. Alina stayed behind. "So you've been waiting to use that against me?" she asked. Her tone wasn't angry, it was wounded. "I wasn't waiting. I didn't expect you to call me a liar. You always think you're morally superior. I think I document things." She laughed once, dry. "You've been building a case." "No," I replied calmly. "You built it, when you moved the money." That hit harder than I expected, because it was true. The recording didn't create the conflict, it revealed it. Growing up, Alina was the spokesperson. If something happened at school, she told our parents first. If there was a disagreement, she narrated it in a way that positioned her as reasonable. I learned early that speaking slower meant being doubted, so I started collecting proof, not maliciously, just quietly, saving texts, keeping emails, writing down dates, not because I wanted to win, but because I wanted to be believed, and that difference matters. "You humiliated me," she said. "I humiliated you first." Another silence. The difference now was simple. There was evidence, not interpretation, not memory distortion, not louder storytelling. A recording. Our grandmother's voice, clear as anything. Later that week, the bank initiated a review, because once a question is raised about a transfer made near someone's death, institutions become cautious. The account was temporarily frozen, which meant neither of us could access it. Alina blamed me for that. "You could have handled this privately," she said over the phone. I tried. "You went nuclear." I pressed play. She exhaled sharply. "You don't understand what it's like to carry responsibility." I paused. "I visited her every other day. I handled her paperwork. And you moved her money." She didn't respond. And in that pause, I realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't just about inheritance. It was about identity. Alina had built herself as the reliable one, the organizer, the executor, the person adults trusted. If Grandma had left the savings explicitly equal, that didn't elevate Alina's role, it flattened it. And flattening feels like losing status. But I wasn't trying to reduce her. I was trying to protect fairness. The bank eventually requested written statements from both of us. I submitted mine with a copy of the audio transcript. Alina submitted hers, insisting Grandma changed her mind verbally. Except now there was evidence of what was actually said. That changed everything. Not instantly, but steadily. The narrative had shifted. For the first time, she wasn't controlling the story, and that unsettled her more than the money ever could. The bank's review took 6 weeks. 6 quiet, tense weeks where nothing moved. The savings account remained frozen. No withdrawals, no transfers. Just still, which strangely felt appropriate, because everything between us had frozen too. Alina and I didn't speak unless it was necessary. Short emails, subject lines only. No warmth, no sarcasm, just logistics. In that space, I started replaying things, not the recording, childhood, patterns, the way she used to answer questions directed at me. "Did you finish your homework?" our mother would ask. She did it late. Alina would respond before I could. Or at family gatherings, when someone would ask about my job, "She's still figuring it out," Alina would say, smiling. Always framing, always narrating, never technically lying, just adjusting tone. And I'd let her, because pushing back felt dramatic. Now, sitting in my apartment at 32, listening to silence instead of her voice filling it, I realized something. The recording hadn't just exposed a financial move, it had interrupted a lifelong pattern, and interruption feels violent when someone is used to control. The bank called on a Wednesday. Their tone was formal. "After reviewing documentation and audio evidence, we are reversing the transfer pending estate settlement." Reversing, meaning the funds would return to the original account, jointly frozen until probate finalized equal distribution. Additionally, the representative continued, "We are flagging the transaction as potentially unauthorized due to timing and documentation concerns." Unauthorized. A careful word, but heavy. I thanked them calmly. Then I sat there for a long time, not smiling, not relieved, just aware, because I knew what this would mean for Alina. Her narrative wasn't just weakened, it was officially questioned. She called within the hour. "They reversed it," she said flatly. "Yes." "You sent them the recording." "Yes." "You made me look like I was stealing." "I didn't make you move the money." Silence. Breathing. Then something shifted in her tone. "You've always resented me," she said quietly. That caught me off guard. Resented you? For being the responsible one. I almost laughed, but I didn't. "I never resented you," I said carefully. "I resented being spoken over." That landed, because she knew it was true. "You could have just talked to me," she said. "I did. You said I misunderstood. You should have trusted me. You should have told me." There it was. Trust again. The word people use when they mean obedience. "If you hadn't recorded her," she started. "I wouldn't have proof," I finished. She didn't argue, because she knew. Without the recording, it would have been memory against memory, volume against volume, and volume usually wins. The probate hearing was scheduled for the following month. Small courtroom, nothing dramatic, just paperwork and confirmation of asset distribution. The judge asked basic questions. Were there disputes? Was there documentation? Were all heirs accounted for? The mediator's report included mention of the recording, not the emotional context, just its existence. When asked if she contested equal distribution, Alina hesitated, just slightly. Then she said, no. Not because she suddenly agreed, but because the system now had facts, and facts are difficult to argue with. After the hearing, we stood outside the courthouse. Not close, not distant, just parallel. "You always have something saved," she said quietly. "Not always, just when I need to be believed." She looked at me for a long moment, like she was seeing something she hadn't before. Not competition, not opposition, just steadiness. "You think I'm manipulative," she said quietly. "I think you're used to leading the story. And you? I'm used to being corrected." That honesty sat between us. Uncomfortable, but clean. For the first time, there wasn't a winner. There was just exposure of patterns, of habits, of the quiet ways siblings compete for credibility. The money would be split equally, as Grandma intended, but something else had shifted too. The power dynamic. Not dramatically, just enough. Because once someone knows you keep records, they stop assuming you'll stay silent. The money was transferred back into the original savings account 2 weeks after the hearing. Equal shares. Clean disbursement. Electronic confirmations sent to both of us. It should have felt like closure. Instead, it felt like exposure. Because once truth is played out loud, it doesn't go back into the drawer neatly. It lingers. Alina and I didn't celebrate. We didn't fight either. We just recalibrated. Family gatherings became quieter, more careful. She didn't interrupt me as much, and when she did, she caught herself. That was new. The first real conversation happened a month later, not about money, about our grandmother's recipes. We were at my mother's house, sorting through old notebooks. She held up a faded index card. "Remember when she made us write these down?" she asked. "Yes," I said. There was no tension in that moment, just shared memory. And that's when she said something unexpected. "I didn't think you'd ever stand up to me." I looked at her. "I didn't think I needed to." Silence. Then she nodded slowly. "I thought you doubted yourself." "I used to." That admission surprised both of us, because it was true. For years, when she corrected my version of events, I second-guessed. Maybe I did mishear. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I exaggerated. But the recording had done more than prove one moment. It proved my memory wasn't unreliable. And once that belief shifts, everything else follows. "You made me look bad," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "I made myself look clear. That difference matters. Clarity isn't attack. Documentation isn't betrayal. And protecting your credibility isn't cruelty." Over time, our conversations changed. She still has strong opinions, still speaks first sometimes. But now, when I say, "That's not what happened," she pauses. She listens. The money was transferred back into the original savings account 2 weeks after the hearing. Equal shares. Clean disbursement. Electronic confirmations sent to both of us. It should have felt like closure. Instead, it felt like exposure. Because once truth is played out loud, it doesn't go back into the drawer neatly. It lingers. Alina and I didn't celebrate. We didn't fight either. We just recalibrated. Family gatherings became quieter, more careful. She didn't interrupt me as much, and when she did, she caught herself. That was new. The first real conversation happened a month later, not about money, about our grandmother's recipes. We were at my mother's house, sorting through old notebooks. She held up a faded index card. "Remember when she made us write these down?" she asked. "Yes," I said. There was no tension in that moment, just shared memory. And that's when she said something unexpected. "I didn't think you'd ever stand up to me." I looked at her. "I didn't think I needed to." Silence. Then she nodded slowly. "I thought you doubted yourself." "I used to." That admission surprised both of us, because it was true. For years, when she corrected my version of events, I second-guessed. Maybe I did mishear. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I exaggerated. But the recording had done more than prove one moment. It proved my memory wasn't unreliable. And once that belief shifts, everything else follows. "You made me look bad," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "I made myself look clear. That difference matters. Clarity isn't attack. Documentation isn't betrayal. And protecting your credibility isn't cruelty." Over time, our conversations changed. She still has strong opinions, still speaks first sometimes. But now, when I say, "That's not what happened," she pauses. She listens. Not because she's afraid of another recording, but because she knows I won't let the narrative be rewritten without challenge. And here's the truth I didn't see at first. The recording didn't damage our relationship. The accusation did. Being called a liar publicly by your own sister changes something. It doesn't shatter everything, but it draws a line, a boundary, one I didn't know I needed until that day. I no longer rush to defend myself emotionally. I state facts, calmly, and if someone doubts me, I don't panic, because I know my voice holds weight now. Not louder, just steadier. A few months later, Alina sent me a message. "I've been thinking about that day," she wrote. "So have I. I shouldn't have called you a liar. There was no excuse attached, no explanation, just acknowledgement. That mattered more than the money ever did. We don't talk about the recording often. It sits in my phone, archived. Not as ammunition, not as leverage, but as a reminder of what happens when truth is spoken softly and still survives. Our grandmother wanted fairness. She said it clearly. Equal. And equal doesn't just mean money. It means credibility. It means being heard. It means not being overshadowed. For the first time in my life, I don't feel overshadowed by my sister, not because she changed entirely, but because I did. The money settled quietly. half to her, half to me. No dramatic bank visit, no final confrontation, just numbers adjusted on a screen. But the real settlement happened somewhere else, inside me. For weeks after everything ended, I kept thinking about that moment in the meeting, the way she said it. She lies. She always lies. It wasn't the accusation that hurt the most, it was how easily she said it, like it was already established truth, like the room would accept it without question. For years, I had played the quieter role, the agreeable one, the one who didn't interrupt, the one who corrected herself before correcting anyone else. And that dynamic works until it doesn't, until someone weaponizes your softness. The recording didn't just prove Grandma's intention, it interrupted a story that had been forming since we were children. The story where Alina narrates and I adjust. That story ended the day I pressed play. Not dramatically, not with applause, but definitively. A few months later, we had dinner alone for the first time since the hearing. No parents, no mediator, no legal documents between us. Just two sisters across a table. I felt exposed, she admitted. So did I said. She nodded slowly. I didn't expect you to have proof. I didn't expect to need it. That was the truth. I never planned to confront her publicly. I never planned to challenge her authority in a room full of people. But when she tried to reduce my credibility, I chose clarity instead of silence. And clarity changes power. She stirred her drink absent-mindedly. You always thought I overstepped, she said. I always thought you assumed. Assumed what? That I wouldn't push back. She didn't deny it, because she knew. Growing up, pushing back wasn't my instinct. Maintaining peace was. But peace built on imbalance eventually collapses, and I was tired of being corrected into smaller versions of myself. The biggest shift wasn't the inheritance, it wasn't the frozen account, it wasn't the probate ruling, it was the internal one. I no longer question my memory when someone challenges it. I no longer shrink to keep conversations comfortable, and I no longer mistake confidence for accuracy. The recording sits in my phone still. I haven't deleted it, not out of resentment, out of reminder. It reminds me that truth doesn't have to be loud to be strong. It reminds me that documentation isn't aggression, it's protection. And most importantly, it reminds me that being called a liar doesn't make you one. Silence does. We still have disagreements. We still clash sometimes. But there's a new tone now. When I speak, she listens. Not defensively, just fully. And when she speaks, I respond without bracing, because the ground between us is different, even. Our grandmother wanted fairness, equal, and she got it. Not just in money, in voice, in credibility, in balance. I don't feel triumphant. I feel steady. And steady is better, because steady lasts. If this story felt personal to you, tell me what boundary you had to set. Thank you for listening.